Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Spider-Man No Way Home. And I did not like this movie, okay? This was one of the only movies since, Transformers 2 where I got progressively more angry at it after I started thinking about how it ended and everything. And I it even though I didn't like it and I don't think it's a good movie for what has occurred because of a myriad of things going on doesn't mean that there aren't certain things that I like within it. And the thing is, I'm definitely going heavily into spoilers because there's no way to adequately express the frustrations that I have with what has occurred in this movie. Now, I like Spider Man. I loved Tom Holland as Spider Man. And this, oh, it really didn't hit me until we got to the end and all of the repercussions of the choices that they were making became apparent. And the thing is, you kind of remember that whole little spiel where we freaked out that Spider Man wouldn't be in the MCU anymore? Nah, you really see the fucking ramifications of that fucking little thing going on right in this goddamn thing. Alright? You do not get to the end of this movie and not understand the stances of the various studios to a degree. There is a reason that this motherfucker kind of shook out like this, and we'll kind of get into it as we go along this journey. Now, I do not bring out this jacket lightly. Now, granted, this is the first MCU movie that this was out. Now, granted, I probably would have done it with Black Widow if I had the presence of mind to, actually utilize it. But since I'm using this now for, either really, really good things or really, really bad things for, that dinner theater thing, I did not expect it to be popping out with this kind of thing. Now, my objective with this review is not to turn you against this movie or think that I hate anybody for liking this movie. If you like it, that's good. There were really good moments in this movie. But there is the fallout for what has occurred and how this kind of whole thing went down that I do not like. Because it severely hamstrings the stories that we are going to be able to tell with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. And we have other things that just fucking, I don't think anybody really thought through what they were trying to do with this. So we start off, and it's pretty much from the end of the previous movie, Far From Home, where Peter and MJ are freaking out. The whole place is freaking out, and I understand, the polarization of, the deep fake of, hey, Spider-Man killed Mysterio, and I understand that they had to try and figure out a way for Peter to get around this whole thing. However, you don't ever really feel that Peter ever... You don't really feel that Peter as the character really makes the decisions in this. It's more like the plot demands that's okay, we need Doctor Strange in here. How do we kind of work this and configure this to what's kind of going on with that? It's alright. Because he's going through, he's trying to go to school, figure out everything like that. Flash is trying to, of course, get in on it. Actually fucking has a book out. I mean, it was kind of funny. I'm okay, we do get some good character interactions between, Peter, Ned, MJ, even Flash and everything going on. And he also gets back home, and we see that Aunt May and Happy have broken up. Happy, of course, is not taking it well. They kind of bust in on Peter, of course, changing out of his spider suit. They, of course, think that, Nazi times are going on. And it's no. And I'm how do they not hear all the, things going on as they're trying to, follow Spider-Man, who's been purported to have murdered someone? And the thing is, there are enough tech people. Fuck, Wakanda could have come in and been that was fake-ass shit. If there was ever a fucking moment for some tech shit to come on, I'm yeah, I know, Tony's not around. But there are still smart-ass motherfuckers everywhere going on in this to be yeah, that's not what's going on. They could have, read the receipts of what was going on, who was actually in control of the Stark tech when shit was going down, and that essentially Mysterio kind of fucked himself over and got his own self killed. And they could have went that route. Peter trying to like be on the run and clear his name. However, that is not the objective here. Sony has, for some odd, inexplicable reason, wanted to do stuff with the Sinister Six. Sinister Six. Sinister Six for a fuck all while. So guess what? We kind of needed it to go a certain route to kind of get all these Spider-Man villains to essentially get the Sinister Six without it being the Sinister Six. Marco, Dylan, Octavius, Norman, Connors. You could almost count Mysterio with what's going on, but I'm going to say that fucking loosely. But we see that everything's kind of going on, and instead of like Peter trying to outsmart his way out of this, we instead get them trying to go along with this other kind of thing, and we see a Daredevil cameo. He's able to somehow inexplicably be able to get Peter out of his legal quandaries with the whole murder of Mysterio, even though there's still the court of public opinion being like, Spider-Man killed this dude. Alright. I mean, it was cool to see Daredevil in there from the Netflix show, and somebody threw a brick through the window and he caught it like that and was like, holy shit. However, with the end of the movie, that introduces some problems. So yes, it's a cool cameo, but like, what are we going to kind of get with this? So we see that it continues to affect their lives. We see that Peter, of course, goes to school with his friends and all that, and his friends are getting kind of drawn into it as well. But we see that like the teachers and the guidance counselor, except for like the coach that had him in detention, who's pretty much a conspiracy theorist, fuck nut. And the thing is, this would have been an interesting kind of thing of conspiracy theorists believing in what's going on with Mysterio and the deep fake and all that kind of stuff, and those who were with Spider-Man and all that, and like seeing the Avengers and everything. That would have been a very interesting movie. Instead, it is relegated to just essentially, oh, it's both sides. It's like you either support Spider-Man or you're like, he's a fucking murderer. And you just see that kind of bopping up and around through this movie, and it's like, oh my god. It's just, I'm glad that the whole thing wasn't dropped, but this kind of dangling bit, like a dingleberry of shit, just kind of like, you're doing nothing really with it except to have J. Jonah Jameson be like fucking InfoWars dick shit, like running around being like, I'm in danger, looking at weird shit, because he's essentially doing what Peter Parker would do, following Spider-Man around to get pictures and Motherfucker. I actually didn't think about that until I started talking about it. But it's really kind of weird. I mean, he does have somebody who does shit like Peter, like actually tailing him and shit, and it's just like, alright. Well, we get those legal fees done, and evidently Happy being, I guess, the person in charge, even though you'd think that Pepper would be in charge of, like, the Stark shit, unless Stark divested himself of the Stark industry stuff, would be in legal trouble, but that's just brought up and then shut down. It's like, alright, cool. So, they are then trying to figure out colleges and shit. And for some reason, Ned would be coming to them to MIT. Even, like, granted, he does have computer aptitude, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but they've never really focused that much on, like, their academic shit for what's going on. It's more just like, okay, they all keep getting affected by the controversy and no college will accept them. Which I think is kind of bullshit. There are some colleges that would be like, yeah, we'll take the controversy. Even, I would understand the college's hesitancies, but I would think that there would be, like, one or two weird motherfuckers that'd be like, yeah, we're gonna accept that shit. But they get not accepted to any of them, not even to MIT, except for some reason. Well, Flash Thompson's the rich kid dude, so of course, money thrown around and everything like that probably be for the MIT, which he's just mainly does like vlogging and shit, and for some reason was able to like publish a book, so I'm almost dumbfounded why he would want to go to MIT when he's pretty much set himself up with that. Otherwise, just because the plot demanded that he get into MIT to conjigger some shit and everything like that, to be like, hey, he got in, but our protagonist did not. And it's like, alright. Not that he's smart enough, but we've never seen him doing things that would be like, okay, or that his parents went there, you know what I mean? Even if you gave me that little bit, okay. He's like, alright, fine, whatever. And then he's trying to think of what to do, and because there's Halloween decorations up, he thinks of Doctor Strange and goes to inquire of his assistants. Well, he gets in there. Of course, there's snow and everything around. We get some kind of funny stuff that actually Wong is technically the Sorcerer Supreme because of Strange being blipped out of existence for 5 years. And for some reason, because the plot demands it, Peter is asking about, like, the Time Stone. Even though, granted, they were trying to mess stuff with the Time Stone when they were fighting. Yep, hold on, going back. He does know a lot of shit about the Time Stone and would have known after he came back that, like, the Time Stone is gone. Why is that important? Because I'm also going to bring up everything that kind of went on with those Infinity Stones, with what is going on as we're doing all this shit as well. So he's like, yeah, we can't do that. And Peter's like, oh, yeah, now I remember that. Because the plot is trying to be, like, closing off any kind of other avenues before forcing us into this one. And then Strange is like, you know what, just forget about it. And then, of course, that pops off Strange's head. I do like the little interactions, like, hey, we saved the universe together, call me Steven. It's like, still Strange. And that's a little joke that works pretty well throughout of it. And at different points, too. So Wong is like, don't do that spell. He's like, hey, don't you remember that one night? He's like, no, I don't. Yeah, because the spell worked. He's like, I don't want a part of this. Do whatever you want. And of course it's snowing because Wong didn't do any seals that he was supposed to for, like, what was going on with, like, a certain kind of outpost that they had in, like, Serbia or whatnot. And then, like, a blizzard blew through. And they actually got fucking, like, interns shoveling or something. I'm just terming them interns because I don't know who the fuck they are or why the fuck they're there, other than, I guess, extras who would, like, want to get into a movie. So that's fine on my point. I'm like, hey, you get in a movie, you get in a movie, man. So Strange and him go down to, like, this deepest kind of sub-level of the Sanctum Sanctorum. And it's kind of like a Nexus kind of ley line focal point, which I'm like, he's getting into the mystical stuff. And Strange is like, alright, we're going to make sure that everybody forgets that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. And I'm like, you just essentially go to that and essentially starts doing the spell right off the cuff. Now, I understand that we have only had limited exposure to who Doctor Strange is as a character over his introductory movie and Infinity War and a little bit in Endgame. And the thing is, Strange usually doesn't do spells like this. Why do I bring this up? Because he acts kind of out of character to start doing this spell and then making changes to it on the fly as Peter's talking about it. The thing is, Strange, as the Doctor, as the Sorcerer Supreme, usually would go into the technicalities of what's going on with a spell before doing it. And then, of course, there's usually ramifications or some unforeseen thing that they did that would have a fallout with that. That I would actually get into more, instead of that he's in the center of it and Peter starts talking about, like, he needs these certain people to know and whatnot, where Peter would have been able to kind of, like, hash that out. And, of course, overloads his spell, freaks it out, and he's able to, like, contain it. And he's like, you didn't even talk to, like, the college admissions people before you came to this spell thing? And I'm like, I get that it's mainly for the plot development to actually do this whole spell thing. But also, we are taught that, like, to question the kind of, like, college authority thing, kind of, you got to be careful on that shit. You know? It's like, alright, fine, whatever. So Peter says he's sorry, sir. He is, like, pissed off. He's like, don't call me, Steven. It's like, alright, I'm sorry, sir. And Peter's downtrodden and everything. And the thing is, you do get that, like, Strange gets some, like, does have a soft spot for Peter. Otherwise, he wouldn't, like, talk about doing this. Because he did have an interesting kind of, like, working with him in what was going on with Infinity War. And I kind of wanted to see more of that. But instead, we get Strange being like, yeah, I'll help you. And then we intentionally have the fuck up thing going on. And then he kind of tries to fight him for a little bit at a later part in the movie. It's like, sweet Jesus. So Peter then goes, he tries to get in contact with Flash to see if anybody who's in there at the mixer thing that he was going to is in charge of admission stuff. He's like, yeah, but she kind of left, so he's able to like swing on through, finds her on like the road, and he's trying to at least get just his friends to be reconsidered. And she's like, alright, it's kind of weird. And before anything could be happening, we get Otto Octavius popping up. Most of the stuff we've seen in the trailers and all that. And it's okay. They do their CGI de-aging stuff fairly well. But it still kind of looks a little bit weird throughout the movie. But we see him like going and attacking Peter and all that. And it's actually a pretty good fight scene. The fight scenes are pretty good here. And they actually do tell character stuff, because you see him using his iron spider legs. It's like, oh, okay, got some competition now, and going back and forth. But the thing is, he's also trying to help as many people as he can, and to also make sure that the college lady doesn't die. He's able to kind of like get her into a position where a train doesn't like hit her, but Octavius pretty much tries to like take his ass out, but some of the nanites get onto his tentacles. It's like, you're not Peter Parker. And then the thing is, because the nanites got onto his tentacles, Peter was able to like wrest control from it. And we see this funny kind of thing where he's able to like control it and get the college lady back up and gets everything. So now he's like, what the fuck's going on? Lady's like, alright, thank you. You saved me. You're a hero. I'm going to talk to about you and your friends getting into MIT and everything like that. Oh, you can just do my friends and all that. I'm doing it with all y'all. And then you attack me out of... You attacking people. Fuck you, man. And then kind of like walks off to like go on to her flight. And it's like, Then, of course, we see that Norman Osborn starts like going through shit. But, of course, they kind of get dragged back towards Strange. Because Strange's like, yeah, everybody who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is getting drawn into this universe. Which is a weird kind of... Spells have to be very specific within what's going on with their outcomes. Okay? Like, if they... I understand doing one thing or another, but you... Magic and science have certain kind of defined rules. It just being able to start pulling people who know that Spider-Man is Peter Parker from everywhere... As for it to be an unintended consequence, you have to work a little bit more onto that. And the thing is, if they were going for a multiversal kind of crazy-ass thing, they already had a thing set up with, like, Loki with the multiverse being brought in for the show. And just, it would have been interesting if certain ones were being like, hey, we could survive in this universe, and just started, like, attacking it or whatnot. I'd have went with that. But it's like, alright. And he's like, alright, we gotta work with this. It's like, I'm gonna need some help. He, of course, gets MJ and Ned, and it's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And Ned tries to bring up if he's got any magic powers. He's like, yes, this is... Supposedly my family's got that. And he's like, no, you should just see your physician for your tingly fingers. But I do like how we kind of, like, go through with Ned's kind of stuff in the movie, but he then politely asks them to Scooby-Doo this shit, and they just start figuring it out. We see that Strange has also captured Kirk Connors from The Amazing Spider-Man. They've got Otto Octavius. They're trying to figure out all the different kind of stuff. The thing is, Peter's given this kind of like bracelet thing, so that way he can like shoot a fucking spell that'll put them in like a captured kind of thing. It's like, alright, his like wizard's dungeon. And it's funny seeing like these other Spider-Man villains from other universes be like, what the fuck, there's magic and shit? We're in a wizard's dungeon? What the fuck is up with this? Well, they're able to look at, and they see that, like, some dude was pretty much going for, like, this weapon stuff, which, of course, sounds like Norman Osborn, that Otto's able to tell them. And Spider-Man's able to kind of, like, clean his shit, and then... Well, it's not completely clean, but his Aunt May helps him later on. So he flies out to the middle of nowhere, and that's, of course, when we see that Electro pops up. But Peter does get an assist from Sandman popping up, as they're able to, like, get him out of the whole kind of electricity field, him taking down, like, the power generators, and getting him back into human form, even though he's buck-ass naked. And he even comments on this. I know this is kind of weird and shit, but I'm nude, man. Got any shit? And then he, of course, teleports them back. The thing is, Marco's like, hey, I trusted my Spider-Man, but I don't know you, Spider-Man. And gets him back, and then they kind of like get back to the sanctum to kind of figure out what's going on. And of course they start learning that each of these villains died in their respective universes, and if they are sent back, they will die. Well, we also see that because of this, Norman is kind of like going kind of crazy. He's fighting his goblin. He like breaks the goblin mask and everything, kind of hides the glider, kind of wanders. Aunt May calls him like, "Hey, there's like somebody here for you," and it's regular kind of Norman, and she like tells him to try and help him and whatnot, and he's like, "This isn't really my problem. I gotta send them back to their thing." And the stupid kind of part of this movie is it tries to do the moral kind of equivalence that like Peter himself would be like killing these people, and that Aunt May's trying to be like, you have to help these people. The issue with that is that isn't like sending them back to some kind of predetermined, like an undetermined time within their timelines where they could effectively affect this kind of change. Let me kind of expound upon this for a bit. If you have somebody, and let's see, all right, Otto Octavius. Yeah, if you're putting him on his moment of death and he's pretty much already going down and drowning, no matter if you make him a better person at that point, if he is slingshotted back at that point in time in his universe where he's like in the process of drowning, good fucking luck that makes if he's like a better person there. He literally cannot like effective any kind of change to like get out of that scenario. So even if you make this person a better person or a worse person, they are still fucking dead in that kind of scenario. Because in Spider-Man 2, he does become the better person, he does become back to himself, and then he drowns the kind of out-of-control fusion thing, which after I kind of like saw, I'm thinking like, I was alright with it as a kid, but then I'm like, that isn't how you kill a sun or a fusion thing, but that is the least of my problems at this point. So, boom, it's like, okay, because Aunt May's, of course, going with the whole great power, great responsibility that she's going to be due later on. And the thing is, I'm like, no, you would have fixed a good amount of things going on because the spell would have been done, and then the cataclysmic shit that goes on at the end wouldn't be occurring. I understand what you're trying to do. Okay, I understand the moral complexity that you're trying to introduce. However, you have failed in that kind of thing. Like, I don't know. Yes, you should try and help people. Okay? I'm not saying that that isn't the problem. But if your objective is to make someone a better person and try and affect their life positively, if you send them back to their time of death, you're probably just making sure that they get into one certain kind of afterlife. Because if I'm sent back to if I turn villain, and I'm about to pretty much get, like, exploded by a bomb, and I got, like, 3 seconds before, like, an atomic bomb blows my ass up and fucking dusts my ass. You could make me the sweetest person possible in your Spider universe. You hit that spell thing, I'm back there, and guess what, baby? I'm kissing my ass goodbye. So, where's my incentive for doing any of this? I mean, granted, the fabric of your reality will be, like, fucked up, and I'd potentially die, but in this other reality, I am going to die. So you definitely see where the other villains are kind of, like, coming from, be like, even though they are just, like, the barest minimum there, they pretty much get rendered down to, like, their basic kind of qualities that they can have. Because, granted, most of their characterization has been done in other movies, and they don't have the time to even fucking do any of that kind of shit here. So, their basic kind of motivations are done. Sandman, daughter, Electro, more power, Otto Octavius. He pretty much stays kind of like what he's doing until they, like, kind of get him back to normal Octavius. Kurt Connors is like, I want to turn people into lizards, and Osborn is just like, I want to be a big ass dick, yeah, big ass dick. I want to be a big ass dick and kill some motherfuckers. That's it. And then somehow provide some moves that fucking didn't like happen in like his Spider-Man movie. So it's like, alright. Strange, but alright. So he's doing this and kind of getting them back, taking Norman there. And Peter comes to the realization, also because the plot demands it, because we gotta have this kind of conflict, that we have to have Spider-Man fight Doctor Strange in the mirror dimension and shit. See him also like fucking astral projected as well. He's like, nope, I'm gonna save these people. I'm like, alright, fine, but the minute you send them back, they're gonna die anyway. Like, I'm not trying to get into like fatalism and determinationism, but Strange is like, yeah, this is their kind of fate, and this is kind of how this shit would fucking work. We jacked them out at a certain point. They ain't fucking... So Peter tries to take the little cube thingy. He does get like astraled out of his body, but the thing is, I think his spider sense is able to kind of like remote control his body to like fuck with Strange. He's like, why the fuck is this happening? He's like, dude, that was cool, but don't do it again. And then he like puts him in the mirror dimension. He's able to kind of like use geometry to like fuck with Strange and have him hang over the Grand Canyon for a couple hours. And then he comes back, and then he takes all the villains out and takes them to the apartment that Happy has allowed them to use, so that way they are safe to try and cure them all. And the thing is, some of them are alright with it, some of them are like, unlimited power. And of course, it's mainly the Green Goblin being like, I'ma be a dick, so everybody be a dick. Even though Marco's like, I wanna do this thing to see my daughter. And it's like, okay, then why the fuck isn't Marco teaming? I don't fucking... Whatever. So, they're in there. Evidently, there's a fabrication thing from Stark. Like, it's getting to a point of like, alright, magic MacGuffin box. Go. Like, Stark was good. But Peter's good too. We only get at the end Peter being able to do his Peter things. Actually sciencing and doing his own kind of thing. And I understand where it kind of sets up at the end, but we'll get to it. So, at first, he's able to do a new kind of chip with Dr. Octavius, because that was able to control the arms, because they all have their own kind of AI, and they were all kind of like fucking with him. But he gets back, he's like, hey, yeah, I'm good, man. And then, of course, Spider-Man gets his nanite kind of stuff back, and he's got, like, regular suit that's clean, and then whoop. They don't get markers yet, but they get one for Dylan Electro. And he's like, yeah, I fell into a thing of electric eels, and making fun of all the stuff that people have fallen into. Sandman's like, yeah, I fell into a particle collider. Gotta watch where you fall, man. And it's like, and it's like getting ready to do it. Osborn is, of course, really taken with Peter, being like, yeah, you're really good. If you ever kind of like hop the multiverse and shit, I'd give you a job at my place. And the thing is, they kind of overdo it a little bit on Osborn's good side, because even Osborn's good side in the Raimi trilogy wasn't this nice. You know what I mean? But they needed more of a juxtaposition of good Osborn and I'ma kill motherfuckers, because that's what we do. And Connors, of course, is sitting in a truck. Jameson's like going around trying to find shit and see shit going down as this all hell breaks loose, because Norman goes, ah, fuck this shit, oh my god, literally. He's like, we are gods. And I'm like, fuck it. And Aunt May kind of has like his thing and tries to run from him. Electra's like, screw this shit. They kind of fight Octavius, and Octavius essentially gets yeeted out for like a portion of the film. Like, he goes away, and I have fuck all nowhere where he went. He just disappeared until the film and the plot be like, Octavius, appear! Like a fucking Pokemon. And so Electra's like, I'm a bounce. And then Marco's like, I'm a bounce. And Connor's like, I'm a bounce. And then Norman's like, I'm gonna fuck you up, Spider-Man. Even though you're like, what the fuck is he doing? And it's really weird, because most of the times that like William Dafoe is like fucking him up, it's pretty much intentionally like to the point so that way you don't know that it's William Dafoe. Like, so that way they have like, I think the stunt double or whatnot going on, because he's doing like some weird ass moves, and I'm like, alright, like, if Norman Osborn had, like, trained himself to do certain shit, I'd be fucking fine with that, but we go on. I get down to the ground floor, Aunt May kind of gets there, and he's like, yeah, here's the consequence. You tried to get everything, and the world was telling you, you can't have it, Peter, so, screw you, man. And his glider comes in, hits Aunt May, and, he tries to throw a bomb, and Peter's able to kind of, like, not catch it, but, like, shield. But, of course, he gets up Aunt May, and she's like, yeah, I'm okay. He's like, this is all my fault, and everything like that. I should have just done what I did. And she's like, with great power comes great responsibility, and it's the execution of this. I don't mind that Aunt May's saying it. I don't mind that anybody else besides Uncle Ben would say it. It's just like, really? Because if I would be able to argue with her that, like, his great power and great responsibility was to have shut this shit down and stopped this, because look at all this destruction, look at all the people in harm's way. You did not understand what was kind of going to be going on with this as it was. And then she dies. Like, we get the emotional scene. You do get that from Tom Holland, but it's like, Jesus Christ. And see, the thing is, while this is going on, MJ and Ned pretty much have dominion over the cube. And if they didn't get any text or information from Peter, they're gonna boop it and, like, dupe it. And the thing is, they literally should have done that by this point, but who fucking cares now? And Peter is really sad and everything, and, like, damage control is coming at his ass. Happy kind of stalls him for a little bit as Peter runs, and it's like, holy shit. Of course, MJ and Ned are at Ned's house, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And the thing is, Ned is able to use Doctor Strange's sling ring now, which is really kind of cool. It's like, oh, good. He could have, like, some magic and stuff. Until the end of the movie. But they try and get Peter, because when he captured Doctor Strange over the Grand Canyon, he took the sling ring as well, so that way he wouldn't be able to, like, mess with what's going on. However, I think Doctor Strange would have been useful. Fuck even Wong, any fucking Avenger. I mean, granted, this is in New York. You got fucking Winter Soldier. Granted, I don't know what the hell Sam's doing as Cap, but that would happen. I don't know if this gets around the same time frame as Hawkeye, but, like, that's going on. Fucking Daredevil. When you have a world full of these heroes, you have to write it in such a way that these questions have answers to them. However, they're trying to find Peter, and the first time they do it, they open it up and we see Peter, and that's Andrew Garfield's Peter. He's like, hey, yeah, I got pulled into your universe, and this is kind of fucking weird. I'm like, we found another Peter, and they're like, prove that you're Spider-Man. It's like, alright. And then he, like, jumps, and, like, it's really kind of cool to see Andrew Garfield. Now, granted, I never saw Amazing Spider-Man 2. I thought that Amazing Spider-Man 1 was okay. Like, I really think you get to a certain point where Sony kind of, like, goes nutty-doo-dah and essentially does shit kind of like DC, where the executives are like, more money, do this, that, and the other. It's like, I don't... What? Alright, fine, cool. And I think we're seeing the fallout ramifications of that kind of shit. But, however, that delves more into the end. Alright. Keep that in mind, and if I don't bring it up again, talk to me in the comments. I got a lot of shit on this motherfucker. So, we have our great interaction. I do like the Spider-Man interactions that we get here, alright? I'm not a heartless bastard. I do love the Spidey shit we get in here. But when we get to the end, the fallout gets nutty. Well, he's like, and then, of course, Ned's, I don't know if it's his mom or grandma's like, hey, can you get the cobwebs? I'm like, fine. And then he crawls on the hall, and then, I'm like, all right, fine. Do another find Peter Parker. And then that's, of course, when Tobey Maguire's pops up. Now, he's not in his spider suit, but he's like, yeah, okay, ooh, prove it. That's true. And they start, like, thwipping at each other, and it's kind of funny. It's like, all right, that's kind of good. All right, you're Spider-Man, you're Spider-Man. Of course, he's older, but he's still able to get into how his Spider-Man was. Both of these actors, and it's really kind of nice. Now, granted, since I was more of, like, Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I wish there had been another one where it was able to be essentially into the Spider-Verse with all of it, because all of this shit that I'm telling you is in this movie. It's too much fucking shit. there's too many people and too many characters in here to effectively balance them. You know? Like, it's the goddamn curse of that third fucking Spider-Man movie. If you get to it. God damn it. But they're all good. The grandma's like, yeah, just clean up your webs and shit. It's like, alright, cool. And they're like, alright, what's going on? It's like, listen, we have to find Peter because he's in a bad space right now. It's like, yeah, do you know where you'd hang out? Of course, one would do the Chrysler Building, one would do the Empire State, and they're like, yeah, okay. And we find out it's the school because we'd seen that as him and MJ were dealing with all the hoopla going on at the school. And, of course, we see MJ and Ned hug him because of losing Aunt May, which was nice. And then he's freaking out seeing the other Peters, and he's like, I don't know how to deal with this. I want to kill him and everything. And then we see these Peters impart their words of wisdom, kind of similar to like into the Spider-Verse and all that. It's really kind of cool because we see the older Peter, Tobey Maguire's Peter, talking about how his was Uncle Ben and how that affected him, how he went through his kind of vengeance and how it didn't help, and how Andrew Garfield's, his was Gwen. And I do like that they did the juxtapositions of like different kind of ones and what that tragedy means to Peter and why it helps to fuel him as a hero. And he's like, it made me angry and all that. And he just seen how to, like, Andrew Garfield really fucking does that shit. Alright? Like, I didn't hate him as Spider-Man. You know what I mean? He might not have been one that, like, I connected with a lot, but fuck damn, dude. He gets it. And so does Tobey Maguire. It's like, yeah, we got good Spider-Man here. So they come up with their idea. We're going to cure them all. So they pretty much go into the school building, and we see the Peters doing their all different kinds of stuff to get, like, the Norman one, Electro, Connors, and Sandman, and all the different kind of stuff, talking about, like, Spider-Man, like, Tobey's with the organic weapons. Like, that's fucking weird. And, of course, Tobey's killed, his best friend died in his arms trying to kill him, and it's like freaking out at that. That was a kind of funny little moment, but they're like, alright, we gotta get him to a centralized place. So Peter calls into J. Jonah Jameson, pretty much puts the call out at the Statue of Liberty to pretty much get him to converge. And it's kind of cool seeing them kind of like do their different kind of Spider-Man stuff. Andrew and Tobey's interactions were really kind of cool. Holland asking about, like, does the organic web come out of other places? No. Like, what's the weirdest villain you ever fought? Like, you definitely get everything out of it of, like, 3 Peter Parkers talking and bullshitting about all the different kind of stuff that they've done, even at their different kind of, like, stages in life. That's good. Well, then we get this overly long and complicated kind of fight sequence going on as we get the climax, and CGI is not horrendous, but it does most of the kind of work, which is good because we see a lot of Spider-Man actions and different kind of styles with how the other Spider-Men kind of deal with things. So that's good. Character shown through action. Yes. So we see like Sandman, Lizard, Electro pop up. We don't see Norman yet or Octavius. Let me see, 3. Yeah, 5 of them. So they're kind of going through. They're trying to go for. They are discombobulated at first, but then Peter's bringing up that he was in the Avengers. Good for you. I don't know what that is. All right, that's kind of a team because Holland is the only one that's really been on a team. So he goes him 1, Tobey 2, Andrew 3, and they kind of coordinated everything. They cure Marco first, so he gets back. That's the only time we see him in his human form. Then we see them kind of going after Electro, get that kind of done, and Kirk Connors. But see, the thing is, MJ and Ned have the box and everything. They try to, like, close it, but it's not working. Lizard tries to go after him, and then they get back in. Ned tries to get back out, but we get Doctor Strange, and he's like, oh, you can use that? You do have magic, my boy. And then he's trying to deal with everything going on. Otto helped them take down... he popped up and helped them take down Electro. And, of course, they had to do that whole kind of thing. It's like, oh, he got fried, and so he's bad. And he's like, no, he's still good. So then Electro's good. Connors is good. And then, of course, Norman shows up, and... Strange was about to use the box, but he threw a pumpkin bomb in it, and blew that up. So the spell is like destroying the fabric of reality. As everybody who knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man is popping through, and I'm like, alright, whatever. You're just trying to make it to a point where you gotta make this choice, and alright, fine. And we see that Peter is like beating the shit out of Norman and gets to a point that, well, Tom Holland Peter, and he's about to try and kill him, but of course Toby's Spider-Man pops up and stops him from doing it because he knows it's not going to help or anything. But then Norman stabs his ass, and then Peter stabs him with the cure that Andrew tosses for him, and they're all good, and he's like, oh, damn. So then he gets up, and like Strange is like, I don't know how to fix this and everything. And he's like, why don't you just reconfigure the spell so that everybody forgets Peter Parker? I'm like, what? Usually, that has to be kind of more specific. I didn't even think about it when I was at the movie, but like, if everybody forgets Peter Parker, there are people that are named similar names. You need to be fucking sure on that. He's like, are you sure about this, kid? Like, it's not forgetting Spider-Man or anything, it's forgetting Peter Parker. And that would wipe him out of the MCU. Okay? You kind of have to start understanding what's going on here. When Sony pulled that shit, Marvel knew what was going on, I think. And the thing is, listen, I am not trying to stand for the MCU, alright? I just like what they've done with their characters, and I do like it when all the characters are pretty much used and can be utilized as effectively as possible. Sony has not my confidence at all. Like, I saw what they did with Raimi's Spider-Man. I saw what they've done with The Amazing Spider-Man, which they do have a joke where they keep referring to Andrew Garfield as amazing. And I've seen what they've done with Venom, and after seeing this, I don't really have confidence at all in Morbius at all. So they can do whatever the fuck they want. But it's like, oh, okay, and it's building up to this kind of sacrifice and everything, and I kind of get it, and it's kind of Tony and everything like that, but that wipes out a lot of fucking shit. Like, Spider-Man still exists in the world, but it introduces such a whole host of problems. He's like, fine. I was like, kid, call me. I think we're past that. He's like, thank you, Steven. And you see that kind of like hurt thing. It's like, yeah, this is the suckiest situation, even though we've been kind of forced into this, but alright. Because you would normally think, oh, okay, I kind of understand doing this. And the thing is, I'm like, this is kind of a stupid kind of plot way to do this. But if you think about the business ramifications of what was going on, then I was worried that this would fucking happen. That they would put it into such a way that Peter's kind of thing would be ended, and that if Sony ever tried to pull that kind of shit again, Marvel would be like, go for it. And then we'd have Sony doing whatever they want to do, and I'd be like, alright, fine. You do that shit. If that's how you want to play that, you want to make all the money and everything, go for it. What I liked about this was seeing Peter interact with stuff. Now, was he kind of more beholden to Tony Stark than I would have liked with all the Stark tech and everything? Sure, yes, I kind of wanted him to do his own kind of thing. And get there, and eventually lead the Avengers and everything. But this, kipashes all that. Because he gets through it, he says goodbye to Ned, says goodbye to all of them, and then of course the spell works, we see all of them start to disappear and go to their ways, and then we see that nobody knows who Spider-Man is, and Peter Parker's been wiped. He said that he was going to find his friends, but decided not to since they both got into MIT and didn't want to endanger them. The usual kind of Spider-Man kind of thing. I get that, but he has nobody. Nobody knows he's related to Aunt May. Happy. That means that all that kind of shit that we've seen is out. Pepper doesn't remember him. Fucking Steve Rogers wouldn't remember him with everything that was going on with Civil War and all that. And why would they have him lead the Avengers when Sony can pull it like that? It destroys it. Spider-Man is still technically there, and nobody knows who he is, and I get that. But it just destroys a lot of the certain kind of, storyline potentials that I had a lot of hopes for. Now, granted, I understand that's me, that's how I'm viewing it, and that's not everybody's. I get that, that's cool, and I'm not saying that everybody should be viewing it my way, alright? But I wanted to see Tom Holland's Peter Parker leading the Avengers in a climactic kind of thing, and being that kind of hero that Tony and the other original Avengers had kind of inspired these kind of heroes to be. And I don't think we're getting that. I'm like, fine, alright, I get it, cool. And you kind of taken away some of the stuff that I've been liking about what you've been doing with the Spider-Man. Because we then also see him go to Aunt May's grave, and he didn't even say that, like, how he knew her. He's like, oh yeah, I knew her through, like, Spider-Man and stuff like that. And then we end the movie with him going into his usual kind of Peter Parker, Spider-Man kind of status quo. He's got nobody. Like, he doesn't even have Aunt May. He doesn't have any friends. I don't know how he would have any money. I don't even know how he would actually be able to live. Because he told Mary Jane that, well, not Mary Jane, MJ, that his name was Peter Parker. I almost thought that would cause some kind of shit because Peter Parker wouldn't exist in the world. I thought he'd have to go by another name. I almost thought we were going to be getting a fucking clone reference of him calling himself Ben Riley. Scarlet Spider. Clone. Fuck my nuts. However, he gets to a place, he tries to, like, do his GED kind of stuff. We see him make a homemade, traditional kind of Spider-Man costume and then swing around in the snow. I guess around Christmas time. I guess around the same time as, like, Hawkeye, if that's what it's trying to, like, show off. And the thing is, once I started figuring out the ramifications, I kind of even couldn't enjoy that. I liked it, but I'm like, alright, cool. But even though I kind of wanted that, to him, like, do his own thing, make his own shit and everything, it felt like the execution just didn't work for me. I'm like, alright, fine. Going through the credits and everything, and then we see Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock, for some reason, was brought in with this as well. Even though Eddie Brock didn't know that Peter Parker was Spider-Man, evidently the Venom symbiote did, and that's how that kind of works out. So he's going through and learning all this stuff from this dude who's like, purple alien stones? They want brains and shit. And I'm like, I'm not partial to the Venom series, not through any fault of, like, Tom Hardy's or anything like that. It's how they want him to play Venom. And I don't fault him for it. Just not my kind of bag. It's really, really weird. Then he tries to get him to pay, but of course the spell thing goes off and whoop. But for some, because they have to be like, hey, guess what? These symbiotes, like, if symbiote rules worked like this shit, there should be symbiotes everywhere, and the Earth everybody should have symbiotes and should be like fucking thunder bashing each other, because we see a little pile, it's like, oh, we've got, Venom in the MCU, the symbiotes in the MCU. I don't know if that means that we're getting, like, Null and stuff like that because of Gore the God Butcher and Thor Love and Thunder, because of that kind of stuff, or what that kind of means. But I'm just like, fine, do what you do. Then we get to and it's really kind of weird. I don't know. At first, I'm like, why the fuck did they kind of do this at the end of the movie? But now, since I'm thinking under the whole auspices of MCU, Sony's Spider Universe, I don't know if they kind of didn't do an end credit thing because of that, and instead just showed a trailer for Doctor Strange 2, as we see that, evidently because of this spell, multiversal shit goes kind of whoop, and Doctor Strange needs help with what's going on. He goes to Wanda and says, oh yeah, I'm not here for that Westview thing. Crazy magic lady using magic powers to enslave an old town. That's literally, shit Sorcerer Supremes look into. I mean, granted, yes, you have a bigger problem, but, well, fucking bootholes. So, then we see that he has to deal with, Mordo. It's like, yeah, I've got to deal with your shit. And then we see evil Doctor Strange pretty much being brought into this. I don't know if that's because of, like, how well received he was in, like, the What If or whatnot. So we'll kind of have to see how that works on. I hope that they'd use him better there than what he was in here, because they kind of made him... They did plot demand shit to him so that way the plot would work. And there's usually kind of smarter ways to have done this. Balancing how you do the plot and the character development. So they pretty much put it into a position that Peter Parker's Spider-Man has no big kind of claim in the MCU. So that way, if Sony tries to like pull some shit, they can go and take him and do whatever they fucking want, and it won't like negatively affect the MCU. I don't like it, but I understand the tactics and what has come on and done this. This was the, I guess, best kind of closure waypoint that they could do. However, they could have done it a fucking hell of a lot better. Alright? All of it deserved better. Peter Parker and Spider-Man deserved better. Like, I understand if you're getting into spots where the businesses are, like, fighting each other and everything. But you can give satisfying closure. Alright? Like, even if it hadn't been, like, that I saw Peter Parker leading the Avengers as Spider-Man. If you had done a thing where he, like, heroically sacrificed himself or whatnot, and you got Miles Morales or whatnot, but, like, doing that kind of thing. And I understand that's kind of like the semblance they were going for with him wiping himself out of here, but it's the execution that really matters, and it just rubbed me the complete and utter wrong way. Ugh. Fucking hell. So, yeah, and that's not just, like, the biggest problem. You can tell that there was a lot of myriad things that just jumbled up this whole thing. All of the villains, all the characters that you had to, like, juggle to do all these things who didn't really get adequate characterization and time. Even though we got really good character interactions with the Spideys. That is a highlight, alright? Even though I do not like this film, I do like what we were able to do to see 3 different Spider-Mans for 3 different kind of, like, fan bases interact and do Spidey shit, okay? That was fucking cool. That was awesome. That was at least well executed. I won't, you know what I mean? Now, granted, we're, like, deep into this, so I will hit on that. I will be like, yes, alright, cool. That was awesome. But the price was too high for me, and it really killed my interest in other kind of Spidey things, because no, not like I'd still like the comics and I would still like MCU Spider-Man, but this was just too pretty much, if you're gonna fight over him, this is gonna be what's going to be the end goal. Peter will never be important to the MCU. He can never be an important story point ever again because of that kind of shit. Alright? That means he's never really going to be called in. He's never really going to be deep character ties to any of them in the MCU other than what is required by whatever they can. They'll make it as thin as possible, so that way if Sony goes, Mike Toy, it won't fuck over the MCU too badly. And I understand, but I don't like it, you know? But hey, that's what we got. I hope I've explained as well as possible how I feel about this. And the thing is, if you like it, if you like the Spidey stuff, yes, I understand that. I'm with you on that. I like the Spidey stuff too. And if you really love this movie, I am happy for you. I never want to take that shit away from anybody. So enjoy it, alright? Just agree to disagree on that, man. That's cool. So those are my opinions on the movie. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.